Hello and welcome to another episode of Spiritually Incorrect. I'm your host, Seth Hart. Join with me is Jonathan Lyonhart.
Hey!
Hey! It's
How's
a new
it going,
year,
there?
Jonathan. This is our first
Uh,
episode we're recording in the new year.
this is the first episode of the new. Now, what's the
Are
accent
you
Benoit
Elvis?
Blanc does? No, I'm trying to do Benoit Blanc. It's like molasses off the oh,
It's
it's
like a
donut.
molasses off the tongue. You see now.
A donut, a donut. How does he do it? It's just the first time I heard James Bond do that accent for the Knives Out series. It was just a revelation. It was just like the funniest and most wonderful thing.
I think that honestly, Daniel Craig moved like 10 tiers up my favorite actor list the first time I saw that.
Oh, it was marvelous.
The range.
The range. The first Knives Out is just it's just perfect. I mean, we were supposed to do chatter first before we get to the point of this episode. All right, let's do the banter. How was your Christmas?
Oh, it was fine. Great transition. It was fine, John.
Yeah.
Nothing really much to talk about. How about you?
Yeah. No, it was a good Christmas. Got to just spend some time with the kids at home, and that was really nice. Really just
Get
getting into the
anything good?
rhythm. I got what'd I get?
Must have been real good, Jonathan, for you to think so hard about it.
No, I got a guitar. The guitar was really great. I got a lot of stuff. It was a good Christmas. There was
Because that's
so
what
many.
Christmas is about.
I
The
I
presents.
got an iWatch. Yeah, isn't it? I mean, the Magi bring the gifts to Jesus. Like presents.
Exactly.
Presents are embedded theologically in the season, Seth. Don't try to argue that presents aren't part of it. So,
Yeah, they just aren't gifts.
well, those are gifts. Presents? I don't know. Anyways,
You know what I got?
what'd you get?
The flu.
Aww.
Yeah.
Well, at least
For everyone-
Christmastide, you continue to celebrate for Christmastide with that.
Yeah, for everyone who's listening and wondering why my voice sounds like I've been chain smoking for the past 3 weeks, that's why.
I think it actually works for you. It has the Phoebe Buffay effect. Your voice is
I-
deeper and more masculine, more stereotypically masculine, at least.
I was
Like,
wondering how long it would take before you brought that up. Because you do that every time. You did that with Jason Josephson Storm. And I was like, he's going to do it with me.
I'm gonna Phoebe you.
Phoebe,
Buffet.
yes. Every time.
Prepare to be
You-
buffeted.
You watch so much stuff, but you've like 3 things you make cultural references to: Jurassic Park, Star Wars, and Friends.
Yeah. No, I don't. It's funny because I don't really read like theology books. I just kind of watch TV. So that's my theology.
Like Benoit
So-
Blanc.
Benoit Blanc. Benoit Blanc.
So as
So-
you guys can probably tell, the beginning from the title of this episode, as you can tell, I'm not sleeping well either. From the title of this episode, we're doing another movie review. Last time we did God's Not Dead, a bad Christian movie review. This time we did. Is this a Christian movie, John? First off, let's ask the question: is this a Christian movie?
I think it's a
But
theological
we're doing
movie.
Wake Up Deadman, the new Netflix Knives Out movie that came out in the past month. But John? Is it a Christian movie?
It's definitely a theological movie. There are theological themes being wrestled with, but it's not like a evangelistic, like Christian film with a clear Christian message. Because even the grace message that's very strong in it is tempered in its, it's not like Christianity gives the grace, right? And I think the key thing is that the writer and director, Rian Johnson, isn't a Christian anymore. He grew up Christian, but he left the faith in his 20s. So it's definitely him wrestling with his faith at a deep level. Like, this was some of the most honest faith stuff I've seen in film, but he doesn't like come out with a altar call at the end, right?
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know, Knives Out is a sort of murder mystery fun series. The original did incredibly well, and they've released 2 sequels on Netflix. 2 mixed reviews. Mixed because I didn't like the second one, and it's become quite a cultural phenomenon, these movies have. But this third one is very much embedded within the story of the church, as John was talking about. Yeah, it is.
It's not to mixed reviews. The second and third one both got in the 90s on Rotten Tomatoes. I think both with critics and with viewers, like popular level stuff. It's just.
I even said mixed because the second one, in my opinion, stunk.
I don't think mixed is accurate, but I think if you saw the first movie first, Knives Out, it's the ones that follow it just can't live up to it, which I consider the first Knives Out to be one of the best movies of the 21st century. I think it is exquisite. It's arguably perfect or close to it. So the fact that like 2 and 3 aren't as good as 1, like that's not a huge, like they don't come together as well as 1, but they're still really interesting, good films, in my opinion. But
they are. No, the second one I think is highly and totally predictable. And this is my hot take. Number 1 is good. It is not one of the best movies of the 21st century. And I just can't get behind saying the same thing about number 2. In about 10 minutes, I had predicted who the killer was and exactly what was going to happen. And that's the exact opposite of what you want in a Knives Out and murderers mystery sort of story. Third one, though, was an upgrade. It wasn't quite to level 1, I think you're right, but it's better. It's a lot better.
But see, the beauty of Knives Out 2 was precisely that it was very obvious from the beginning who did it. And that was the whole point. He was playing with what you were just saying, Seth, is, oh, well, clearly this guy did it. And then you think, well, it's got to be deeper than that. It can't just be superficial. And that's his whole point, is you spend the rest of the film trying to think, okay, what's the deeper twist? And then at the end you realize, wait, there is no deeper twist. The man's just an idiot. Like, that was the beauty of it, Seth, is that he was taking the usual thing that you just said and playing with that.
You know, you can do that with any dumb film. You're like, man, this film can't be really that dumb. And at the end you're like, wait, no, it really is that dumb. No, but he explicitly said beautiful.
That. Benoit Blanc says at the end.
So that's what takes a movie from being a stupid movie to brilliant and amazing, and 90% is that you just have to acknowledge you're dumb.
No,
that's all it takes is one line.
If I was just reinterpreting it that way, you could do that with any film. The difference is the script actually makes that explicit. The whole point is the whole film you're trying to think. Okay, well, whatever.
You just need one line,
it wasn't a line,
and all of a sudden you're bad script writing.
It was embedded in the infrastructure of the whole film. The whole film, Glass Onion, literally means to look into a glass onion, like to think you're seeing something deeper, but it's actually not. That's the whole title, that's the whole pitch. It's not like I made a bad film, let's tack on a line. It was infrastructurally his idea from the beginning. The brilliance of the film is to convince you that this man is brilliant and so can't have done this crime because it was stupid. And then at the end, you just accept, okay, hey guys, spoiler alert, by the way. Spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't seen this.
Spoiler alert for a lot of these. We're not going to spoil the third one. We're going to try not to.
But we're totally going to spoil the third one. No, if you haven't seen it, don't listen to this episode. Go watch it, then listen to the episode. I'm planning to talk about all sorts of stuff from the third one in this episode. I'm not going to talk. That's what the point of the episode is. The theology of the third Knives Out movie. That's what this is.
We haven't discussed this ahead of time. Let's keep spoilers to an absolute minimum. That way people don't have to. We're not making a gateway for this episode so that people have to watch it.
I won't say who killed who. That's fair. We won't tell you who the murderer is, but you're going to get some plot points here and there. Is that fair?
Sure. Sure. And honestly, can I just go ahead, for people who haven't seen it so far, can we just go ahead and touch on what the plot is? We've talked a little bit about it, but can I just go ahead and kind of give a rough stance on what happens in the movie?
Yeah, just that initial kind of the setup. Yeah, not the conclusion.
So for anyone who's seen the first two, it's a bit shocking because for the first 30 minutes of the film, it has nothing to do with murder. It has nothing to do with the one through-line character, the Sherlock Holmes character, Benoit Blanc. He doesn't pop up in the movie at all. For the first 30 minutes, you follow this former boxer turned Catholic priest who gets assigned as an assistant priest to this one parish where this other priest named Wicks, played by Thanos,
Josh Brolin,
is basically leading a congregation, and it becomes a sort of cult of personality where he's driving people away from the church. He's very fire and brimstone, very politically driven sort of Catholic priest who's very adversarial towards the world. And people within his congregation slowly begin to either adopt him as a sort of cult figure, and the rest of the people are sort of driven out. And he's been sent here the assistant priest, whose name is Duplantis, right? Judd Duplantis.
Which I think is meant to make you think duplicity so that you're questioning him a little bit.
Well, no. So I'll say this much. It's supposed to be Jude Duplicity, which is a play off duplex, second, but also deceitful, right?
Yeah.
So that's the wordplay there. Because I did look this one up.
Yeah.
So he's the main character, and he's there, and he's basically appalled at this because he takes a more traditional church stance, and they make it very explicit that what Wicks is doing, the church did not approve of. He's basically going against the message of Christianity by making it all about himself, by making it all adversarial and about hatred rather than about love and care for the world. And from there...
But he's obviously doing it in the name of Christianity, right?
He puts a Christian gloss on it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And people are there for different reasons. But from there, during Good Friday Mass, he is killed. And
you didn't have to tell them who is killed, just that someone is killed.
That's early on in the film.
You gave the spoiler. All right, fine.
So he is killed, and that's the murder mystery of what or who did it, because everyone thinks Judd immediately seems like the perfect person to do it, because Wicks hates Judd, Judd hates Wicks. They seem to be at battle over the church, so everyone in the town immediately begins to think it's Judd who's killing him. When the police come in, he's the number one suspect. And that's whenever you get Benoit Blanc, who does believe Judd is innocent and has to try and solve the case before Judd goes to jail.
There we go. That's a decent summary.
There you go.
So, there we go.
And thank you. And you only interrupt me once, which is quite nice for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when it comes to a Christian movie, there are lots and lots of Christian themes, as Jonathan and I have kind of alluded to. It's not. I mean, it's part of our It's going to be part of our Christian movie series. Or a bad Christian movie series. It's not that bad. I mean, I give it an 8 out of 10. Yet, nevertheless, we wanted to deal with it because it will probably be, at least in 2025, it will probably be the most influential movie that deals with Christianity. Don't you think? Is there anything else? David, maybe?
I think in popular culture that maybe non-Christians, like en masse, right? Like Christians might be engaging with other things in culture that are more Christian-y, but in terms of all of society, this could be it. And if this is it, I'm not mad about that. This guy isn't Christian anymore, but he also doesn't caricature faith too badly. Or at least, if he does caricature faith, he doesn't caricature the main priest character. The main priest character felt like a legit, genuine, authentic Christian for me.
He does. And he definitely tries to portray him in an honest, real light.
Yeah. Well, and that was Johnson, the director, when he was writing it, said, initially when I wrote that character, I kept making him come off too much as too cynical as who I am now. And I really had to dig deep, he said, to go back into my faith years to really not caricature, but imagine it as I used to believe it, and to remember all of those beautiful and good things, because there were beautiful and good things there. And so, like, he really wrestled with how to write that. And I think it shows through. He did a good job with that character.
Yeah. Do you know why he was motivated to make this one?
To wrestle with his faith. He didn't have to make the third movie. The Netflix contract he had allowed space for him to go make another movie between 2 and 3. But he said it was so... the idea was so personal, I just had to make it. It was me... literally going back into my past and coming to terms with how me today relates to that. And like he said, it was a huge thing trying to figure out his faith still, because he still talks about his faith years, the writer director, as though he misses them. Like there was a lot that was good there that he hasn't been able to replace elsewhere. So even though he doesn't believe, he's not like totally removed. He's still trying to figure this out. I actually have a quote. Can I read it real quick? It's him talking about it. And I think this helps set things up. Johnson says, quote, I grew up very Christian, very Protestant, evangelical. I basically grew up a youth group kid. I was deeply Christian up through my early 20s, and then I fell away from the faith in my 20s, and I don't consider myself a Christian anymore. Everything that's kind of wrapped up in that, there's a lot of complicated stuff going on for me. And so with the movie, the first step was digging back into that part of my life and also engaging with the things that I hear from faith that still fuel me today. and the things that I don't like so much about my time in the church, and seeing if I could have a multifaceted conversation about it. So that's the end of his quote. But I think what's really interesting is The Last Jedi, the movie that a lot of people hated. I think of this has made me rethink Luke's character there, because Luke is the writer-director, Rian Johnson. Him disillusioned with his former faith in the Force, right? Like, that makes sense of the character. I know a lot of people hated that character, but I think that's where that was coming from, was that same space.
Most people hated that character.
Yeah, well, I think even Mark Hamill hated the character. But it's definitely an authentic character. Like, there's a lot of people like that who are strong in the Force and then get disillusioned as they go on. Like, so, yeah.
Yeah, just don't turn it into a Star Wars film, maybe. I mean, it worked in this one. I'll say that much. It worked in this one, just not in Star Wars.
Yeah.
So basically what you're saying is we have a Christian-esque movie written by a non-Christian.
Yeah, I think written by a former Christian who has two worlds in himself and is trying to duel them out to figure out what's going on in himself and in the universe, right? Especially in America today. This is a very contemporary political, like, it's dealing a lot not just with Christianity as a belief system, but as an American cultural institutional thing as well. So it's him dealing with what he thinks of where the church is going today.
Yeah, and so if you could summarize the message of the movie in one sentence, what is it?
I think putting Christ back in the church makes us love and heal the world rather than fighting it.
And so his big concern is that they're too concerned with fighting the world.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's how the movie starts, is the guy punches out the other priest, right? And then the whole conversation is, well, son, from the older priest, they're like, we want that fight. We just don't want you to be fighting your fellow priests. We don't want you to be directing that fight at the church. We want you to be directing it at the world. Fight the world. And then he turns it back and says, no, we need to love the world. And I think a huge part of the film is turning that fight against the church itself to say, you guys should turn your judgment and aggression towards critiquing yourself and reevaluating some of the horrible things the church is doing, instead of being so angry and aggressive at the world. And I think I think he frames it in a very liberal, very like the references to homophobia, racism, like it's a very progressive liberal framing of that. Like, he's critiquing the church for critiquing those things instead of critiquing themselves, right? And he definitely is coming from that perspective in the film and in all of the films. Like, the first film was it's right in the middle of Trump's presidency, and you can see those MAGA themes he's throwing out for sure.
Well,
right?
he critiques both sides in the first one, right? Because there was a liberal family that was mooching off the system that got cut out, right?
I think that's a good point. The first one had a bit of critique of both. This one's more pointed, though. Did you get that
the
as
second
well?
and third are definitely more left-wing. The first one, it took shots at both sides, right? It took shots at the left-wing socialists who were mooching off the system, and they get cut out by the Uncle Sam figure.
Yeah,
the right-wingers did as well. Who inherits Uncle Sam's legacy? That's the murder victim is clearly Uncle Sam. It's the Hispanics who put their heads down and work. They're the ones who live in line with the American tradition. These honest, good people are most likely, strangely enough, the immigrants. And that's kind of the point, right? It's your ancestors were immigrants who just put their head down, worked hard, and earned a legacy and earned the American dream. And now your descendants feel entitled to it.
Oh yeah, no.
And that was the entire point of, and that's a message I think most people can get behind, especially because he does take such shots at both sides.
Yeah. I think the first Knives Out, you could go in and not feel your worldview challenged. You could see it reinforced either way. I think this one is pretty overtly coming from a progressive critique of MAGA Christianity right now. I don't know how to see it otherwise.
So
personally.
What did you think of that message then?
Well, I mean, if you're asking me my political affiliations, you can go back and watch other episodes. But I think the way the political and the theological combined for him in the film is, I think, the theme of fighting the world, the church fighting the world, combines with the theme of you're constantly attacking the things you don't like, whether it's in sexual ethics or politics or whatever. when you should be trying to love and heal the world. And there's a specific line where I think it gets very political. Let me quote this. Right after they find out like this horrible truth, and I won't spoil it, but a horrible truth about their charismatic leader. One of the guys says, as Christians, we're all shook up by this, but we're fighting an existential war here. And we don't need someone who's going to lie down and take it. We need a warrior. And I believe God chose Monsignor Wicks to be our warrior. We're with you, Monsignor Wicks. And literally nothing you say or do is going to change that. And so I think that religious Christian war, like we're fighting the world, then combines with the political, like the charismatic preacher that they're all following in the movie is, I think, very clearly meant to parallel Trump in a lot of places. And because we're at war, the ends justifies the means. And so the Christian theological fighting the world has legitimated this wartime ends justifies the means equation politically.
Yeah, back during the Clinton administration, evangelical Christians were the number one group of people to say that a leader's moral lifestyle should affect whether we support them. By the time of 2016, they were the least likely group to say that a leader's moral lifestyle should affect whether we should vote for them. So there's an exact reversal in 20-year period. And the difference was it sleeping with Monica Lewinsky or was it Donald J. Trump, right? Because nobody reads those questions in isolation. They read that as, who are you talking about, right?
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason for that. And I think when it comes to that, I think most Christians would probably, I even think most evangelicals would probably say, yeah, I wish our leaders were better moral people. Okay,
Okay.
Yeah. Even regardless of your political opinion, I think most Christians would probably get behind that. I will say this. I think you're 100% right that it does come from a more liberal perspective of wanting and desiring the church to look more like a certain model of the church.
100%.
And in one sense, that's healthy, right?
Yeah.
I thought the message of, hey, you can't love the world while also keeping your fists up and fighting it.
Yeah.
That's an obvious message, right? Yeah. You're not going to win people to Jesus by beating them up and defeating them on the field of battle. Yeah. Your battle is not against flesh and blood. It's against the rulers, powers, and authorities of this dark world. It's against the spiritual forces behind them. But right now, we seem more concerned with about owning the libs than we are about, bringing people into the loving and fold of the church.
Yeah, and I think his critique isn't, hey, the church sucks or Christianity sucks. I think there's some moments like that, and we'll get into that when we talk about original sin, because I think he has some theological points that he's picking here too. But I think for me, the overall point wasn't Christianity's stupid, the church is stupid. I think his point was almost a plea for the church to be the church again. And I think by that, he means, what has happened to Jesus? He's no longer in the churches. And I couldn't take away any other message. And here's a spoiler. Close your ears if you don't want to hear a spoiler. Because the film ends literally with the cross and Jesus being brought back into the church for the first time in decades. They didn't have and that's how the film ends. And I can't, in light of the film that preceded it, I think he's literally begging Christians to put Christ back in the church, a Christ who loves and heals, not fights. Like I think that was the point of the movie.
That is a good message. I will also say this. I'll add this. I don't think it was originally conservative Christians who originally brought this adversary or were fighting against the world message into the church.
I think that's a fair thing. Yeah, this definitely isn't conservative Christians for all time or bad versus progressive Christians who are enlightened.
I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to give you my stance. Here's exactly my thing that I want to say. I think it's been part of progressive churches for a long time to fight against the other side. I've been part of conferences and been in churches that portray people of the other political aisle or portray people unlike them in nearly demonic terms. And I've seen that since I was a child. However, more recently, I think the film has picked up on, there's been a lot of conservative Christians now, not liberal Christians, but conservative Christians who've done the exact same thing. They portray people on the other side as demonic and to be conquered and destroyed, and raising the moral urgency so high that you just want to pick up your pitchfork and go burn the other side rather than actually love them.
Yeah.
But to me, that means that the conservative Christians end up looking more like liberals. The problem with the conservative church is now it's become too much like the very church that it's trying to conquer.
I think it's fair to definitely see to say that this isn't just one side or the other's fault. Like everyone does this type of stuff, right? Us and theming, fighting the other. That's from time immemorial, and I think that's a fair critique.
Yeah.
I do think to some extent, the conservative, precisely because it's trying to conserve things that already are. I don't want to say it's always coming from an assumed place of stability, because it isn't always. But there's a quote I saw recently. I don't know who actually said it, but I think it was like, "For the oppressed, peace is the absence of oppression. But for the oppressor, peace is the absence of resistance." And my sense is that I don't think this is always the case, but progressives have often been trying to champion the cause of the hurting, the suffering, like, the minorities and that sort of thing. And that often gets interpreted as very aggressive and violent, like, why are you causing issues? And I guess they might just say, for you, peace is the absence of resistance. And because you have the assumed conserved stability of like white, middle class, Western, like you're able to not need to fight for what you need, whereas the oppressed have to fight for it. But other than that, I do think I think what you're saying makes sense as well. Like,
well, I mean,
I've seen a lot of aggression from progressive people, not just recently, but even before the Trump years, right? Like, so.
Well, yeah, but that's the idea, right? It's the idea of begging Christ to come back. If the violence is okay because you feel like you're a persecuted minority, that's exactly what Wicks is saying the church is, right?
Yeah, and I guess the question is it, right? Like,
well, even if it is, right, we would still say Wicks was wrong. Even if Wicks was right that the church is on retreat and is becoming a persecuted minority, would he then be right?
I think it's hard because Jesus is very aggressive, verbally and even physically, in the temple when he overturns the money.
So Wicks is right.
No, because I think Wicks. Here's what I think Rian Johnson might say if he was more theologically astute. I'm not saying this is correct, but I'm saying this is a potential defeater, which is God is fierce in defending the weak, the widow, the orphan. And you see that in the prophetic tradition. I think you see it in Jesus. Who he is not fierce on are those oppressed people. He's fierce on the oppressor and not the oppressed. And I don't think that's a crazy thing to say. The critique would be that Wicks is a white, powerful man in his community, and that community of white Christians is still the majority in the country he's talking about. Is it a minority? Are we oppressed? And that's a much bigger debate. We can get into that, but Christians have had a very large persecution complex in this country. And if that's a legitimate complex, then okay, we have a conversation, but we're still the majority. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not sure we're the ones who need to be fiercely fighting to protect ourselves.
Well,
so I think the equation changes depending on who's in power. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, if we're going to talk about pastors who exercise a high degree of authority within their church, that's true across, whether you're white, black, Asian. Pastors often exercise a high degree of authority, especially in third world countries. I've noticed pastors exercise a lot more authority than they do in America, where, challenging authority is kind of the norm. It's not the exception.
Yeah, I don't think it's like an eternal thing for whiteness. I just think whiteness in this country is the thing. And this is a movie about America. Like, this is
a movie about America. And
yeah.
And my point being, though, my broader point being that, okay, I don't think that really changes the equation, though. Because then you're just saying, okay, the only thing he did was he came too soon. Wicks's only problem was he came too soon. Right? Because it's like, oh, he shouldn't rise up until, not whenever the church is retreating, but till the point that it's become an absolute minority. And that to me that's clearly not the right message to take away from this. It's not this, that he came too soon. It's that he's clearly missed the message of who Christ is.
I think the point, though, is that fighting where you're the powerful one is fighting. But when you're the weak one, it's not fighting, it's defending. And so this is a complicated question, right? Like I think
is the church on retreat though? Because then they would be defending. He thinks he is defending.
Wicks in a lot of ways plays with and flirts with the line of prophet. The problem is that he isn't actually in the prophetic situation trying to defend the oppressed. He's just trying to maintain his own power structures. So it's not that he's fierce for his views. And maybe this is where we could critique some of the language. The problem isn't the fight. It's who you're fighting and how you're fighting. Because if you just generalize fight to mean standing up for what's right, like I think we all would say you should do that. It's the way in which you do that. There's obviously a difference between... No, but that's not the message of
the film. The message of the film was pull, like literally the ex-fighter, pull your fists down so that you can love the world. That is how the church advances. It is by loving the world, not by fighting people you think are your enemies. It's by loving your enemies. And yet you're saying, I mean, you can say you disagree with the film, but I just want to make that explicit. Do you disagree with the film?
No, I think it's just contextualizing its critique. I think its critique is accurate right now in this time and place. I think if you made that critique of a different group that was a minority, you would need to add some more nuances to it. I think that's fair to say.
Here's the problem, though. I think that the exact same message, you can't. You can't just swap out the races and say, well, all of a sudden now a Wicks figure who's black makes sense. He was completely in the right then. If he just had a different skin color, Wicks would have been the good guy.
Would he have been more sympathetic, and would it have made the film more nuanced and
more sympathetic? Yes, but is that the message of Christ? The point is the message of Christ, not does your certain skin color allow you to operate differently with the message of Christ.
Yeah. So I feel like I'm trying to integrate parts of the biblical tradition where Christ does some aggressive things and where the prophets are quite aggressive. And if you just want to not bother to integrate those sides of things, then great. But how do you integrate those?
My question is the movie, though. My question is the movie's message, not biblical. You can integrate these as you want. And you can say the movie got it wrong.
Yeah.
See,
no, but
that's my
we're
point.
Expanding it to a broader question. I think we've gone in circles enough that like I think our audience can probably tell there's some complex issues here, and I think they're seeing some of the tensions. Do you want to continue going down this rabbit trail and get more spirally with it, or do you want to?
Well, I just want to put you on the spot, and then we can move on.
I feel like I answered it.
Do you think the movie's message of Wicks being, unquestionably like the idea that we have to fight the world in order to, show the power of Christ, that message is wrong universally?
I think in most contexts it is.
So I said universally. And so you're saying no, the message is...
If you're wanting to make it super black and white, do I think it was okay for Christians to fight Hitler? Then yes. I mean, if that's the narrow binary that you're insisting we enter on. But I think on a popular level, sayings don't have to be that nuanced. It's okay to say that, a saying works in most contexts, but if you ad absurdum it to an extreme, it might break. I think that's fair. I think most movies are a reduction of a whole complex worldview and philosophy into 2 hours. It's okay to have a slogan not be perfect, but still be meaningful and valid in its own right.
I think that's important, though, because people do try to reduce this down. And people do say, why is the church going out and making a big deal about abortion or this sort of stuff? Abortion's always, I'm just throwing that as a token topic. Why can't they just love, these people, love the single moms and stuff like that? Why do they got to be out on the political campaign trail and doing that stuff? Wouldn't it be better if they just got off the political campaign trail and stopped fighting things and just started showing love? I think people do reduce it down quite a bit and turn this into a simplistic message. And I guess that's kind of what I'm trying to bring out here, is it is more complex.
Oh yeah, it's definitely very complex. And I think maybe 15 years ago, this would have been the exact conversation we needed to have, and it was the conversation I was having 15 years ago, was the one that you're pointing out, was trying to nuance.
Back when we were living in Ozark storms?
Yeah. And I think in that context, it was an interesting conversation. I think in MAGA America, I don't think it's still the emphasis that needs to be emphasized. I think it's the other direction. But I think at that point, this just gets to where you're politically, and I think that's, but.
All right. Anyway. You can move on. You clearly want to talk about something else.
No, I don't think I've sidestepped your point. I think I addressed it directly in multiple different ways. You just kept making it over and over again, and then I was like, okay, I've already answered this.
Yeah, not well, but go ahead.
Well, I felt like I did a great job, but I'm pretty sure people from your context are going to say no, he didn't, and people from my context are going to say yes, he did. So
Sure.
what are we going to do? So, yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead. You've got another point?
No, I just wondering where we go now. I wonder. I want to talk about original sin.
Okay. Yeah, you did bring that up.
Because I think there's a lot of political and contemporary and church institutional critiques going on here, but most of those I thought were really like, you know, I could appreciate where he was coming from, and those didn't feel like he was attacking Christianity itself. At times I wondered if he was attacking, and I wonder if this was part of his journey, the idea of original sin, because guilt and shame were essential to this story. Benoit Blanc, the detective, says to the priest, "What I see is not a guilty man, but an innocent man tormented by guilt." And the theme of Eve's apple, of this jewel that everyone's trying to find, this gold mine that's called Eve's apple, that the harlot took, just like Eve in the garden. And then the film's reversal and is to say that poor girl, to transition from seeing her as a harlot to actually an innocent person who had shame and guilt imposed upon them. And I mean, I think his critique that he was really trying to emphasize was make Christianity about grace and love and not sin and guilt. And I think for him that meant putting the cross and Jesus back in the church. Of course, theologians know that the cross only makes sense when it's love and justice coming together. And forgiveness and love, you know, forgiveness only makes sense if you at least admit that there is a sin there to forgive. And so that was part of the struggle I had with the film. I think it was trying to make more of a substantial theological critique of guilt. And I didn't think I could go all the way with it. Even though I could appreciate that guilt and shame have been overdone by the church at many times throughout our history, of course. But that's a matter of overemphasizing it, not having it present in your thoughts at all, right?
Yeah, the Eve's apple thing, really, this original sin motif gets played on quite a bit. And we won't spoil what Eve's apple is, but there's this... It's a motif. It's something that pops up quite a bit in the movie. It's kind of a fundamental drive. I will say when it comes to the character of Grace, where they switch from her as, quote, the harlot to that poor girl, I wish they had spent more time on that. That's the one part where the film tells you, it doesn't show you, you know? It tells you that you should feel this way about her. It doesn't really show it to you. She's never shown in a sympathetic light at all, period. It just tells you that you should feel sorry for her. So that's part of the that was one of the things that made me drop the score, and I was like, you should have spent more time on that. But do you think it really was, I don't know, is it really about original sin, like, completely, though? Or is it just the idea of temptation, or this fundamental temptation that corrupts us?
I think that his key point was grace and, like, forgiveness and all of that stuff, but I think he felt like that entailed no more shaming and guilt and getting rid of the doctrine of original sin. Whereas I think that theologically it doesn't entail that. I think it entails that grace overcomes those things, but those things are still real things.
Yeah, okay, I'll bite on that, because I wasn't 100% sure on that, but going with that. You know, it's kind of funny, though. Original sin is like the exact opposite for me. Because if everyone has original sin, then we all are equally guilty. Like, what's the point in shaming whenever you're just as bad?
Yeah.
See, it's if you get rid of original sin, then all of a sudden all your sins are your own. And
You're
now all of a sudden
crafted.
I have a moment to brag. Yeah, I didn't do that terrible thing, and you did, and we both started on equal playing ground. But if we all have original sin, we're all equally corrupt before God. Now all of a sudden, guilt and shame don't make sense anymore. It's one equally guilty person indicting another equally guilty person, you know? It's hypocritical.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, in some ways, I think he was trying to do a parable of the prodigal son, but it got diluted because he was trying to do too much.
Right? Yeah.
So, because
there was so much.
He references the prodigal son once or twice, like explicitly. They say prodigal in there a couple times. And then near the end, the older woman, played by Glenn Close, literally says, I was the good sister. I was the good girl. And I think she's contrasting the harlot,
Martha de la Cruz.
Yeah, I think she literally says, I was the good sister, the good one. And I think they were meant to be, this is the older brother, the older woman, who was technically, more religious than the harlot who goes off and squanders the wealth. And traditionally, I think the older woman's redemption at the end, where she decides, okay, I need to forgive. I need to get off my high horse. That's correct. I think the problem that's incorrect theologically is that he then went back and said the younger sibling, the harlot, isn't actually a harlot. Instead of just saying, no, she can be forgiven for harlotry, he instead says there was no harlotry to begin with, and let's get rid of original sin. And she was actually just a poor girl to be sympathized with.
Yeah,
right?
And it also tries to play with her as Martha de la Croix of the cross, Martha of the cross. So she's supposed to be Mary Martha, right? Where Martha's problem was she worked constantly and she thought that was her service to Jesus, where Mary just sat at the feet of Jesus. And what does Martha de la Croix do? She does everything in the church. She works. But you get that she kind of missed it. Because, and I won't spoil it, but you get, it becomes very apparent that she misses the point of the gospel, despite all that she does for the church there.
Yeah, and I think that's a beautiful connection, and I bet he intended all of what we've just said. Because
no, 100%. It's so much.
I think
it's too much.
I think he went back into his childhood and wanted to do justice both to all of the bad things he saw there and all of the good things. And because it was so personal, it was hard to cut anything. There's this phrase in writing circles, kill your darlings. The things that you most love about your manuscript often tend to be the things that most need to be cut, but you're not willing to because they're so personal and you're so connected to them, and it's like your favorite part. And I think he probably had a lot of trouble cutting this stuff out, right? Because there's 1,000 things going on in this movie, and he mostly juggled them, but you can tell it was too much, I think.
There was a lot of convoluted stuff.
Yeah.
And that's actually my big critique of the second one. It wasn't as bad in this one, is you get these great mysteries, because you're like going, how did the murder happen, or who did it, and how could this have happened? But in order to solve them, you get into some real Scooby-Doo stuff here.
Yeah.
Of this happened and this absolutely perfect, and he was assuming that they would all do this, and it was right, this assumption was right, and this, and usually it all gets solved in the space of 5 minutes, and my brain is just going, what? Wait, can we back up, start again? Yeah, and so, but again, the whole point of these Knives Out mysteries, the murder and how the murder happened, nearly takes second place to the broader story.
Yeah.
For better or for worse, it does.
Yeah. No, I can see that. And I kind of liked it to some extent in this one, the third one. I actually thought the first 40 minutes of the film were the strongest, before you get Benoit Blanc into the film, before you actually get to the murder.
I love Benoit Blanc.
I do. I love him. But something Johnson has said is he's not the protagonist in any of the films. And that's been one of the hardest things to do, is he's always a supporting secondary character. The main character is always a different person in each film. And Blanc has to come in and not make it about himself, because his goal is to solve the mystery. But actually what's interesting from a viewing perspective isn't just solving the mystery, it's the character who is undergoing this process and caring about that character. And the characters that you care about, they have to be the primary thing to draw you emotionally into it, right? And the first 40 minutes of the third movie is just the character. And I freaking love this priest character. He's very
likable.
He is very likable, but he's also very real and authentic, and he's the kind of person you see and go, yeah, maybe faith has something to it. I could follow that guy. This other priest scares the crap out of me, but this guy's interesting, and you can really see Johnson made a real... That first 40 films is beautiful.
I will say, I think my Catholic friends, because this is about two Catholic priests, my Catholic friends have loved this movie, and that tells me something. They have nearly always liked this movie and like its portrayal of the church. So that tells me something, because it's about them.
Yeah.
And there's this awesome moment where they're getting this amazing clue. They're talking to someone on the phone. Judd, the priest, is, and he's just like, okay, can you give me this information? And the woman on the other side goes, and you could tell that he's just super hyper mission focused. to like, oh, we'll catch the murderer, we'll get myself off, death row, and right then the person on the other line goes, oh, by the way, priest, and he's like, what? I need to go. What? Could you pray for me? And then the film just like stops. He goes, yeah, what for? And then she just starts, this random woman on the other side just starts, telling him her current situation.
Her mom's in hospice.
Mom's in hospice. Yeah, I don't want to spoil too much. And it's just this beautiful moment where he walks in the other room and Benoit Blanc has to sit there just waiting as this priest actually has to serve as a priest, just this. It was Emily, my wife, as we're watching this, stopped and she paused and she goes, I'm really glad they put that in the film. And I go, I am too.
It might be one of the most poignant things in any of Johnson's films was that moment.
Mm-hmm.
It really was. And I love that you mentioned Blanc having to just stop there, because that contrast between them, the priest is remembering this is about people, and you really see like the value of his vocation, and Blanc is there annoyed because for him he still wants to figure out the mystery. This is a puzzle. And Johnson makes Blanc's ego more explicit in this film. He literally makes it explicit that he wants to get his checkmate moment where he gives a speech at the end and reveals it. Blanc literally says, you're going to love it when I solve the whole thing. It's going to be a great speech. He says that earlier in the film. And the contrast between the priest who actually cares about the people and Blanc who's there for the mystery. Like, Blanc cares about people, but part of the story is actually motivates him. It's not. But the end of the story is the priest winning that character of influence, because Blanc puts aside his checkmate moment to instead allow Glenn Close, the older woman,
spoiler.
Spoiler. Stop listening for a second. But to have her moment of grace. I won't say exactly what happens, but he sacrifices his checkmate speech and his triumph of reason over mystery. He sacrifices that for the sake of another person to be given grace. And so in that, you see that the priest's character is the one that influenced him, not necessarily the other way around. And I think that says a lot about where Johnson was. Like, the priest's character is the one that triumphs in the film. He reforms Blanc. Blanc doesn't, begin to believe in God or anything. But
oh yeah, Blanc's clearly an atheist, by the way, in this film.
Oh yeah, almost dickishly so. Like, he had some Dawkins moments that made me cringe. Like,
yeah. So, I mean, he has to. I mean, I think they played it up to be the contrast to the priest, right? It makes their interactions a little bit more interesting than if he was just, like, I don't know, something else, right? They make it the contrast as sharp as possible.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil more, and I don't think this means anything if you haven't seen it, but it's. We were talking more about the critiques of loving society versus fighting them, right? And at least for Johnson, he contextualizes that in terms of racism, homophobia, those types of things, regardless of what you think of those particular things. But he also makes it clear that Blanc is a homosexual in the second film when he comes home to Hugh Grant, right? And Johnson has said that moment when Glenn Close is forgiven, the older woman is forgiven, and Blanc gives her that forgiveness. He says that is Blanc forgiving his own mother, who he said earlier in the film was religious and very religious, and seemingly the reason why it's alluding to a conflict where her religiosity came up against his homosexuality. And Johnson makes it explicit in the interviews. That was a healing moment for him and his spiritual journey. Even if he's not believing in God, his forgiving of that older woman is his forgiving his religious mother for whatever it is that happened.
Ooh.
And go ahead.
Is this a transformative moment for Rian Johnson? Because, let's be honest, after The Last Jedi, he really does need God's grace.
Okay, The Last Jedi, I did not love that movie, but you got to admit...
You called it too brilliant for its own good.
Yes, that is an exact I think quote. That's right. I did not terribly enjoy it, but I kept going, damn, that was a clever decision. So it was too clever for its own good. It didn't, but he made some brilliant moves in that movie.
Yep. And Rian Johnson is the director of the worst Star Wars film ever conceived. Not even just made, but conceived. The Last Jedi, by the way.
Oh,
before Knives Out.
just because something doesn't come together the way that it could have doesn't mean you can't stop and go, that was brilliant. That was brilliant. Like, I think the last two Knives Out films do not come near the exquisite execution overall of the first one. But
execution is a good word, because that's what he did to the Star Wars franchise, Jonathan. It was an execution.
I still think they were better than the vast majority of films out there. They're even his misfires are worth getting hit by. So
that is, you nearly just don't even want to commit yourself. You know, like, just say it's a bad film, man. It's a bad film.
I'm too much of a cinephile to think The Last Jedi was a film. But I appreciate that experientially it didn't
cinephiles have to think it's a good movie?
I think watching that movie, you can't help but applaud the craftsmanship and the storytelling moves that he makes. Like, I enjoyed it and it was engaged. But did I think it sometimes sacrificed his own brilliance? Like, oh, that was a good move for... he put his brilliance before the experience of the popular audience. And I think that was, at times, the wrong move.
Okay.
But, yeah.
I'm getting us off track. I just had to bring up this fact. It will always sit in the back of my head as, this is the director of Last Jedi. This is director. I'm too much of a Star Wars fan not to be eternally upset about this.
No, The Last Jedi isn't the worst film, even in that trilogy. The third one is the worst film.
No.
Because... J.J. Abrams disowns everything that Johnson made, and so
good.
You might not like the
Johnson did the same thing. He did the same thing with the first film.
No, he took it and subverted it. What Abrams did was just pretended it never happened. And
no, he didn't.
No, he just almost pretended it never happened. He just did cheap writing to get around it. Whereas what Johnson did he knew that everyone was expecting this, and he took that and he didn't just ignore it. He swerved with it in the way that the second film. In the original Star Wars trilogy, also subverted a lot of what you were expecting. Darth Vader's his father, like all of that. Johnson
subvert in a way that makes it more interesting, though. Subversions are not good in themselves. Okay, we're getting too much into this.
Okay. We're getting too off point.
I do want to ask one thing. So this is not the first Christian-esque film that's not really a Christian film. Like a film that's like super Christianese that isn't necessarily a Christian film. There's been a ton of these that have come out. The Book of Eli would be an illustration. I think Prisoners is another one. That's one with Hugh Jackman from a few years back.
That's Denis Villeneuve. I'm always struggling to say Villeneuve. I always
Villanova. Villanova University.
Yeah.
And there's been quite a few. What are some others? Yeah. Superman, the original Man of Steel, had plenty, like, overtly Christian themes to the point that it was advertised to pastors.
Gladiator.
But,
I think both.
The original?
The original is very theological. I've quoted it in so many sermons. At the end, he literally goes to heaven, and he
goes to the Elysian Fields.
Yes, but the other guy says, "I will join you one day, but not yet, not yet." The film is literally about the tension between the now and the not yet. Like,
but that's not Christian. I'm not saying theological. I'm saying Christian.
Okay, sure, yeah.
And there are other Christian ones. I mean, not theological. Theological is great, but. Now, there's some terrible ones like Knowing.
Are there other? Wait, I
Nicolas
thought you were just asking for theological films. You're asking
no, ones that are like
Christian.
explicitly have like Christian themes, like really explicitly Christian stuff in them. Neo and the Matrix, although that one's a little bit.
That's less explicit.
It's way less explicit.
Yeah, I don't know.
So among these, do you have a favorite, John? Is there a movie that? And I'll expand this. Is there a movie with explicitly theological themes, since you want to do just ones with theological themes, that you think is that does this the best?
I'm trying to think about some of my favorite movies. It's hard to even bring them to mind right now. I'm just tired. I think this is not top. I think this is one of the. I might put this top 20. Top 10.
20.
Top in the 10 to 20 range for me.
Gotcha. Well, mine's The Passion of the Christ, so I win. I'm teasing.
Yeah, no. All
We're
right.
talking about explicit Christian themes. No, like that one. That one I think counts as a Christian movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this would probably be top 20 for me as well. I honestly recommend every Christian go see this. I know we've kind of railed on some of the theology in it, but I do think that the core message is still very vital.
Yeah. And even though I critiqued the thing on the original sin, on a practical level, Johnson has a very clear awareness of the role of sin in a worldview. Like, I won't say who, but the murderer, one of the murderer, a murderer, I won't, I'm just keeping,
One of the thousands of murderers.
Literally has a Gollum moment when they're staring at the thing that they were trying to get. And they literally just glare at it, eyes wide, for like 5 seconds. He looks like Gollum.
Well, that's why I wasn't convinced that it was completely a destruction of original sin.
I think he was trying to critique it in theory, but in practice, you can't get away from it because all stories require a fall. All stories require sin. And I mean, Tolkien said that every story is about the fall. And so I think that's the struggle. I think you can critique original sin, like sin taints us all, absolutely or something. But you can't get away from the idea, from what sin does in a worldview, which says something is off, something is wrong. And I think murder mysteries in particular can't, because at the center of them, there is an original sin. There's a murder, like obviously. And so to critique...
There's a murderer afoot.
I think he's struggling with those tensions in the film. And I think what I was saying is very clearly part of his critique of Christianity and probably part of his own journey as well, even if he doesn't totally have a perfect resolution to it the other direction, right? Like,
yeah. So something I'm wrestling is how do these stand up and stack up next to movies like, I don't know, David came out recently, right?
I haven't seen
and
that
apparently
one
it's
yet.
pretty good. Yeah. Apparently it's pretty decent. People have generally positive reviews. When it comes to when we're insiders, as far as the church goes, we're insiders, right? And we talked before that the Christian movies, like explicitly Christian movies, Angel Studios, they've gotten better. They couldn't have gotten worse, but they've definitely gotten better. Actually, they could have gotten worse.
No, I don't know. They have gotten better in terms of technique, craftsmanship, cinematic stuff, and I think they've begun to appreciate that ambiguity is not the enemy of like conviction. That not force feeding you the message doesn't mean you've given up having conviction, you know what I mean? Which is good.
Yeah, good art conceals its message in a way that's palatable, which is something that I feel like even movies like Glass Onion don't know how to do well anymore. That I feel like Hollywood doesn't want the moral urgency so high that it's nearly like as Christian movies move in one direction, normal Hollywood movies go in the other. Although I think they've kind of course corrected a bit.
Yeah. No, I think that's a valid critique that we always point out the messages we don't like in other films for overbearing the movie. But if it's our message and we're on board with it, we don't see it, right?
We're clapping along to it, right? Yes,
yeah.
This is exactly what people need to hear, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's true just generally of people in general. So out of 10, John, what do you give it?
This film?
Yeah.
9.
You gave God's Not Dead a 0, I think.
9 would be my bottom for it.
9, okay.
For me, Knives Out 1 is a 10. And this, if you're comparing it to Knives Out 1, I might make it 8. But if we're just doing a general scale, I'm going to make it 9. Because I still think this is one of the best movies of the year. Even though I have some real flaws with it. It's the whole doesn't come together quite as perfectly as I wish it did. And there's a few bad parts in it. But the parts that are good are some of the best things I've seen in years in those genres. So.
I give it like an 8.25. I'll give it that. It's good. I think the best part of it is something we haven't even talked about, which is the visuals. It is one of the most visually stunning movies that I've seen, which is funny to say for a murder mystery, but the way it plays with light and scenery and stuff is impeccable. And you need to pay attention to the background because there's always something going on. There's nearly always something going on in the background that like tells you something about the messaging of the movie. It's real cool. And
I love that you said
really
impeccable because peccadillos, pecca, literally sin. It is without sin.
Exactly. It is freed from original sin, from Eve's apple.
Yeah.
But I've still got to give it an 8.5. It again, all the critiques I've already said, a little bit too convoluted for its own good. Tried to get so much in it, and that the actual message itself somewhat got diluted. And I honestly think that the message itself could have used a little bit of fine tuning.
Yeah,
I think it comes from a personal conviction of Rian Johnson, but I think as a theologian sitting here, it's one of those things that whenever you begin to look at it from a more 10,000 foot view, you begin to see that it becomes a little bit more complex. And I think the complexity of it is something that doesn't get wrestled with in the film. And I think it should be wrestled with in the film. It leaves you a very sort of black and white image, with a very sort of black and white image of what the church should be. But in the real world, it can't be simplified like that. And I think even on my conversation with John has revealed that.
I think it's always going to be more nuanced, and I think that's valid. And I think there's part of me, more in terms of plot than messaging, but I wish he'd spend a bit more time with simplifying it. And then I heard him talking, and he said he put more work into the script than he ever has for any script before in order to bring it all together. And at first that seemed counterintuitive because I felt like it needed more work, but now it makes sense. He was trying to bring so many things together, and it took him forever to even get it to this point. Like, imagine where it was before. And I think that just comes back to how passionate he was about this story. And I don't know where he's going to end up on his own journey, but to see such an artist wrestling with such existential themes of faith and doubt, it's beautiful. It really is beautiful, and I really I wish all the best to him. And some of the stories, I watched a few interviews in preparing for this. Some of the stories of his childhood really upset me, and I get where, like, we were talking about the fighting the world thing. He relayed going to like a Christian Bible camp, and they were woken up in the middle of the night to play this game where the counselors were the government, and they all had to be the Christians who the government was coming to arrest. And the theme of the camp was, the world is out to get us. And I was just thinking, coming from that world, I get where he's, he this us and them, like, the world's out to get us, this complex, and he kind of swings the other way. And I get why he would. And I just hope that I hope that there are some cool models in his life that show him a different way of being Christian. And I think maybe he's had some of those, because I can't imagine someone writing that main priest character without having at least a few genuine individuals of faith in their life, right? But I hope he finds the church that has Christ back in it that he's looking for. I really do. I hope he does.
I'm glad you said that, because now I have a tiny bit of sympathy for the guy who made Last Jedi. Oh, it's gone. You know what the new Knives Out 4 is going to be about? Have you actually seen? They've just released this new article about it.
Two knives?
No, that'd actually be better than the idea that they actually came up with. No, it's
4 knives and a funeral. Go ahead, sorry.
No, it's this idea of there's this new Star Wars director who directs a film so terrible that every fan of Star Wars in the entire galaxy is considered a suspect in his murder. But the number one is this one philosophy podcaster who maintains his innocence because he thought the film was, quote, too brilliant for its own good. And only Benoit Blanc can prove his innocence. What do you think of that film?
What if it's an unsolvable murder where one podcaster dropped dead, literally, and nobody can solve it until they realize it's because the other podcaster, an upstart in Arkansas, literally talked him to death with stupid theories. But
See, I've tried that for so long, but you apparently have built up an immunity.
I have. Just little doses of you over the years.
Attempted murder.
But, you brought up The Last Jedi, and I would like The Last Jedi to have the last moment of poignancy in this conversation, because I feel like that'll annoy you the most. Realizing that The Last Jedi and Luke's disillusionment with his former embrace of the Force in that movie is in some way autobiographical to Johnson, right? His disillusionment with his early Christianity. It makes the end of that film all the more resonant when Luke finally returns to the Force. And that's the final scene of the film. And it doesn't sound like Johnson's there, and maybe he'll never be there, but man, he is searching. And The Force be with you.
What an
We should end it on
awful.
that.
That's awful.
That's such a great last line.
Now we have to keep talking.
No, let's
we have to keep
re-record it.
talking.
I'll say the Force be with you, and then you say it.
No.